Okay, this is McGraw-Hill Chapter 5, Section 5. This is solving rational equations. We've basically done this in the first chapter. So here's the first example problem. You have 1/2 x plus 1/3 equals 1/4 x. So basically what I did was I rewrote 1/2 x as x over 2, because this is really x over 1 times 1/2. And I rewrote 1/4 x as x over 4. Least common denominator between 12, 3, and 4 is 12. We put 12 over 1 and multiply times each term. So 12 over 1 times x over 2 becomes 6x. 12 over 1 times 1/3 becomes 4. 12 over 1 times x over 4 becomes 3x. Subtract the 3x over, got 3x plus 4 equals 0. Subtract the 4 over, divide by 3. X equals -4/3. Pretty simple in terms of what we've already learned. Here's example 3. I've skipped example 2 because I think you'll be able to do it. But it says 3 minus 6w over w plus 1 equals 6 over w plus 1. Anytime I have a whole number, I always put it over 1 to make it fractions, so they're all fractions. My least common denominator here is just w plus 1. So I'm going to multiply the whole thing by w plus 1. So when I multiply here, I get 3 times w plus 1. Here the w plus 1 and the w plus 1 become 1, and so it gives me minus 6w. Here the w plus 1 and the w plus 1 becomes 1 and gives me 6. Distribute here, I get 3w plus 3 minus 6w equals 6. Combine like terms, 3w minus 6w is minus 3w plus 3 equals 6. We're in two-step form. Subtract the 3, divide by -3, we get w equals -1. Coming to example 5, this is one where we have to factor. So what happens, we have 36 over p squared minus 9 equals 2p over p plus 3 minus 1 over 1. Again, this 1 I put over 1 to make it a fraction. My least common denominator is p minus 3 times p plus 3. So when I multiply this by this, it becomes 36. When I multiply this by this, the p plus 3 plus 3 becomes 1. So it becomes 2p times p minus 3. And of course this becomes minus this whole thing. So then I distribute. So this becomes 2p times p is 2p squared. 2p times 3 is minus 6p. This right here becomes p squared minus 9. This is a difference of squares. Using the subtractive sign, it becomes minus p squared plus 9. Then what I'm doing is combining like terms. So 2p squared minus p squared becomes p squared minus 6p. Subtract the 36 over minus 27. This is a trinomial that factors into p plus 3 times p minus 9. Set the factors equal to 0. P plus 3 equals 0 becomes p minus 3. P minus 9 equals 0 becomes p equals 9. It's pretty much the same thing we've already learned in a lot of these chapters. Last thing, we talked about literal equations and being able to solve formulas for a different variable, but this is a different situation. This is example 6 on page 459. It's big V equals little m little v over m plus big M. We're solving for little m. So the first thing I got to do is I got to get this little m plus big M over out of the denominator's place. So what I do is multiply both sides by little m big M over 1. And then I distribute this v here. So this gives me v little m plus v big M equals little m little v. So then I factor out this m. And then what I do is I subtract the big V big M over here. So that's what's there. And I subtract this little m little v over here. So I get my little m's together. Then I factor out the little m, which leaves me m times big V minus little v. Then I divide back by big V little v. So my answer becomes little m equals negative big V big M over big V minus little v. I hope you can see what I did there. I kind of had to crunch it in there in a little bitty space. I'll explain it more in class though.